am indeed pleased to warmly welcome you to the Center for Culture and Development for this seminar on religion, secularism and shifting goalposts of democracy in India.
It is said, Swamiji will agree with me, that to be truly religious, one has to be inter-religious. And I think this is what this small institute is trying to contribute.
We have specifically asked our eminent scholars to speak about how each religion has faced, confronted and engaged with secularism and democracy, specifically in India, and what are the challenges before them. We believe that to be truly religious, as I said, is to be truly interreligious. This we have followed by engaging keynote address to kickstart this seminar. Eminent scholars will clarify ideas of secularism and democracy in the Indian political stream. Finally, concrete issues, challenges that each religion or denomination or sect faces in the secular democratic India will be put forward and discussed.
Swami Vivekananda said, every country has got one keynote. The keynote of India has been religion. And that can only happen if fundamentalism goes. And fundamentalism will go when we go to the fundamentals. If the fundamentals of all the religions are taught simultaneously, fundamentalism will go. Because if you go to the fundamentals, all religions speak of love, peace and harmony.
The ability to see what is common in one another's religion and thus spread justice, equality, peace, love, harmony among peoples. That is the whole purpose of democracy, where everyone has an equal opportunity for life, for livelihood, to a better future, and to share in all the resources of nature.
कि एक रास्ता चलता है, आम रास्ता है, उस पर चलने वाला हरेक यूं समझता है कि इस रास्ते पर दूसरे का भी हक है। चाहे बड़ी गाड़ी लेकर चलने वाला हो, चाहे छोटी गाड़ी लेकर चलने वाला हो, हरेक इस तरह चलता है कि मुझसे किसी को तकलीफ ना हो और हरेक इस रास्ते से आसानी के साथ पार हो जाए। बिल्कुल इसी तरह इंसानी जिंदगी में यही हाल है और यही मिसाल है कि इंसानों को भी इस तरह जिंदगी बसर करनी चाहिए कि अपनी राहत का ख्याल करते हुए किसी को हमसे तकलीफ ना पहुंचने पाए। और ये कुरान से भी साबित है और ये बात नबी अलैहिस्सलाम मोहम्मद पैगंबर ने भी बयान फरमाई है कि हर एक के रिस्पेक्ट के साथ जिंदगी बसर करना।
But I'd like to draw your attention to Nehru's response to the question, what is your greatest problem since independence? And he first says, creating a just state by just means. And after a little reflection he says, and perhaps creating a secular state in a religious country. Now if you think about this, these are still our problems today. A large part of our problems is because we're trying to create a great power. We have given up the idea of a just state. And just means is completely gone. We want any means that get us there. And we see this in the power politics of our country. And this is the betrayal that Nehru already had perceived then. And these were spontaneous replies. A secular state in a religious country. We cannot have the kind of secularism of the West. We have to devise our own understanding of secularism today, and we cannot get a just state by shortcuts. You have to work at it slowly and systematically. And so also with the idea of a secular state in a religious society. It's not going to happen by wishing it. We have to work for it, otherwise it will not happen at all. But secularism is not defined in the Constitution. At least we know we can describe it. So it is described really by the constitutional vision of diversity, of pluralism, of freedoms, freedom of religion to preach, practice and propagate, in minority rights as well.
So what is Hindutva? Hindutva is a politics. Politics of whom? Politics of the declining sections of the society. What is that politics?
their politics is to retain their social political privileges. What are their social political privileges? They want to maintain their hierarchy which they have inherited from birth. I have inherited my hierarchy from birth, that of a Shudra, Dalit or a woman. I want to throw it away. But these people have inherited a privileged hierarchy. Privileged hierarchy, that of a upper caste, that of a male, that of a dominance, so they want to retain it. So from Hindu side, the word comes Hindutva. And this Hindutva is defined in 1923 by Vinayak Damodar Savarkar.
Now this is what I would call the horizontal splitting of Islam. I'm coming to because how it affects democracy, but then it goes one step further. There is also vertical splitting. See, the vertical splitting comes up because Islam is ultimately based on the Quran. The Quran is the book which we consider is given by Allah, God, to Prophet Mohammad. So the Holy Quran, very few people could really understand the Quran. There were very few people who could really appreciate, understand. The desire of those few people who could do that, the others looked up to them, how we should follow Islam. Now this gave rise to these the saints, the scholars, preachers. The problem was that most of them viewed that their interpretation of Islam is the final interpretation. Any other interpretation is wrong. I can understand that each would feel that when I am right, the other is wrong. But then it went further. In many cases it went that they are not true Muslims if they don't follow this that set of ideas. And today you will see throughout the Muslim world, there is a division, horizontal and vertical, and it is so severe that you can't have people in one may not accept. Years ago there was a fatwa against me saying that I am not a Muslim. Well, that's you can't help it. But the problem that ultimately comes down is that in this type of situation, how do you really run a democracy? Take Pakistan. It has become very common if you read papers. Afghanistan, Iraq. People go and attack mosques and kill people who are praying inside. People of one group go down. How do you explain that? Only because they don't belong to that. They don't accept that brand of Islam. In a situation like this, notice in Islam to kill an innocent is a very big sin. And yet you find people going, taking machine guns and they're shooting down people who are praying inside. In a situation like this, how do you really evolve democracy? I don't know. That is why it is very odd that Muslims can really practice their original faith very well in countries which are non-Muslim. The Muslims in India may perhaps be much more religious in a pure sense. The same thing I would say about Muslims in the United States. But yet they follow Islam much better than the Muslims in Pakistan or Afghanistan.
That there is a problem of the formation of the democratic subject, and also the fact that Professor Shah said that there is not one university in the country where you have a department that is devoted to religious study. Right? They have complex issues that are involved which will not be answered from within the horizons of religious discourse itself. So you can have good versions of religion, and all that you have is that if you have good versions of religion, there is a beautiful society out there waiting to happen, but it doesn't happen because there are bad versions of religion. We don't have an explanation as to in what circumstance religious rhetoric changes from one point to the other point, from good to bad. And
is this not time to think about, as the topic goes, what exactly is this relationship between religion and secularism now, at this point of time in our nation's history? Then, what really are the possible meanings of the secular? It could be equidistance from religions, it could be the separation of the state and the church, but there are also the hidden everyday meanings of the secular. And there was a point of time in Gujarat at least where To say one was secular was to be in favor of Muslims. So if you said I am secular, it means that I endorse Muslims. So there is a sense in which secular has a hidden provenance in the language of everyday life. And perhaps these could be some of the issues that one might take up in this section.
In fact, much of secularism, not in India, but secularism was seen as this whole thing about the state being neutral. We know that in India, the state being neutral will cause severe injustice. For instance, it would be very difficult for the Indian state, if it adopts the position of neutrality, to ban untouchability or ban anti-gender practices which are sanctioned by religion. Also, keeping in mind the fact that this is a state where this is a society or a society which is multi-religious, for the state to stand at a distance and not relate to religion would itself have been a problem.
क्योंकि रिलीजन जहां है वहां टॉलरेंस की जरूरत ही नहीं है।
हम मजहब का जब गलत इस्तेमाल करते हैं, मजहब का गलत इंटरप्रिटेशन करते हैं, उसी वक्त हमें टॉलरेंस की याद आती है।
शेयर कर रहा हूँ मैं मेरा आगे ऐसा था कि कुछ साल पहले मतलब कोल्हापुर में जैसे शाहू महाराज ने महाराष्ट्र के जो मराठी मुसलमान भाई है उनके लिए कुरान पढ़ने के लिए मराठी में अवेलेबल नहीं था। एंड शाहू महाराज बिलोंग टू हिंदू कम्युनिटी, पर उन्होंने उस जमाने में 25,000 खर्चा करके उस जमाने में महाराष्ट्र के मराठी मुसलमान भाइयों के लिए कुरान ट्रांसलेट कर लिया था। तो वो जो पॉलिटिक्स का जो माइंड था उस जमाने में, मे बी ही वाज सक्सेसफुल पॉलिटिशियन। आज के जमाने में जो पॉलिटिशियंस है दे आर प्लेइंग कम्युनल गेम टू गेन द पॉलिटिकल पावर, और इसकी वजह से सोसाइटी का जो डिक्रीज हो रहा है वो उसका रीजन है। अगर आज के पॉलिटिशियन भी उस तरह सोचते हैं एंड इफ दे गिव रिस्पेक्ट टू ऑल communities and all the religion, then this problem will not occur. Thank you.
स्टैंडर्ड की किताब थी और उसमें कहा कि साहब ये किताब में हिस्ट्री का जो पोर्शन है वो हिस्ट्री का पोर्शन है, आप देखकर मुझे बताएं कि ये क्या है। मैंने वो किताब के 7 चैप्टर देख लिए। दोस्तों, मजहब और हिस्ट्री दोनों अलग चीज है। उसमें सभी जगह राम, कृष्ण, परमहंस और गौतम बुद्ध, महावीर, उसके स्केचेस थे 5वीं धोरण की किताब में, 5वीं स्टैंडर्ड की किताब में। मैं उससे उसका विरोधी नहीं हूं, वो होना चाहिए क्योंकि वो हमारी कल्चरल धरोहर है। लेकिन जब हम बिन सांप्रदायिक की बात करते हैं तो उसमें मोहम्मद साहब क्यों नहीं है? उसमें जीसस क्राइस्ट का एक भी इंसिडेंट क्यों नहीं है? दोस्त, मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि हमारे पास जो दिखाया जा रहा है, हमारी जो जनरेशन उसको पास जो दिया जा रहा है, वो कुछ ऐसी चीजें हैं कि जिसके दिमाग में वही आएगी।
Well, it has a tremendous capacity. Religion has a tremendous capacity to close up identities, lock them behind walls, and create very frequently hostile notions of the other.
I would tend to think there is a massive denial of justice, not within the religious space per se, of this, but outside the religious domain, when they interface with the other institutions of the state, governance, be it police, bureaucracy, judiciary. I see massive denial of democratic rights. Either that is because of the failure of individual agencies within it, or because of the macro, and that is where I bring in the majoritarian community and its responsibilities. I believe that look back to the 60 years, I think we have, from the viewpoint of the majoritarian community, we have failed to establish, we have failed to promote and really put deep roots of rule of law. We have not really created a credible justice system. It not only from the religious domain but also from the social domain, social economic. We find terrible gaps and inadequacies there. And I find particularly very difficult to separate the social and religious.